Chapter 9. Fingers' Sooty Night. The next morning, a hazy green light shone through the ivy covering the Lily's windows. Baby felt for Fingers beside her, but there was only a cold patch of mattress where her warm little body should have been. Baby's heart sank. She pulled the blankets off, careful not to wake Jin and Brian, sprawled under their quilts. She stood up and sprang across the mattress floor and out of the room bed, praying under her breath, "Please, God, don't let her be nabbed by that devil." Baby threw on her silk jacket over layers of jerseys that she'd picked up when the weather turned nippy. Some of them didn't smell so good, but it was too cold for washing. She pulled on her boots by the door and opened it with the quietest click. A sooty bundle tumbled in with the crisp morning air, knocking Baby backwards onto the rug. Fingers, wild-haired and filthy dirty, stumbled on the mat. Baby looked up at her sister. Her face and hands were smudged black all over, and her railwayman's jacket flapped open with a big rip in the front. She looked like she'd spent the night in a coal bunker. Something else was wrong, but Baby couldn't put her finger on it. "Where have you been?" she asked. "In a coal bunker, haven't I? Got locked in for the night." Baby didn't hold back. She was that pleased to see Fingers that she wrapped her arms round her tight as a belt that's too small. "Get off!" Fingers wriggled and shrugged Baby away, but Fingers couldn't hide the smile that was forcing itself onto her face. "Why were you in a coal bunker? I thought he'd nabbed you." "Any breakfast? I'm starving," said Fingers. Baby hung up her own jacket on one of the hooks by the door and set about making the porridge. "Darlings, what's going on?" Wrapped in her quilt, Jin peeped through the room bed door. "Oh, Fingers, you're back! Good-o!" Brian, fully dressed and hair brushed, stepped over Jin. "I'm here. I will stir the porridge." Brian gently took the spoon off Baby. It was a cold morning. Ice had formed on the inside of the Lily's windows, but after Baby stoked up the stove, the logs sent out a blast of heat. Fingers actually stripped off to her vest and pants and washed herself at the sink. The water was like licorice juice when she'd finished. After breakfast, the four of them sat round the empty porridge pan in the middle of the table. Baby couldn't wait any longer to get the full story. "Did you see her? Did you see Sophie? Goldilocks? Was she there? Has he still got her?" Jin swapped the pan for a big pot of tea and Fingers began. "Well, the place was all locked up, but I got in the yard, didn't I?" "And you saw her this time?" "Nope." Baby's hope fell like a lump of soot down a chimney. "I climbed over the gates and ripped me jacket, though." And then Baby spotted what was wrong. "Your badge. Where's your little railway badge?" She got up and pulled Fingers' jacket off its hook by the door and pointed at a smaller rip on the collar. Dunno." There was a tremble in Fingers' voice. She knew how important it was not to leave evidence when you were burgling. "Anyways," she continued, "through a window I saw coffins, stacks of them. And here's the thing," Fingers shook her head wisely, they had little holes round the sides." Jin and Brian looked blank. Baby was still thinking about Fingers' badge as she sat back in her chair at the table. "Come on," said Fingers. "Air holes! I thought the whole point about being dead was that you didn't need air." Baby felt her eyes widen and her skin tingle. He wasn't burying people that were still alive, was he? That was horrible. Then a much more horrible thought came to her. Had he buried Sophie? But if he was going to bury her, what would the point of holes be? Baby was going round in circles. "Well, that was when he came back," continued Fingers. "He unlocked the gates and I hid behind a pile of wood. He led the horse in, took off its black feathers and switched the funeral cart for a little one with 2 wheels. Her and her car turned up too. Poor old horse whinnied when the missus screeched her brakes. It didn't want to go back out, but he made it. He locked the gates behind him again. I peeped out through the crack, and there they were, whispering to each other. What were they saying? Asked Jin. I don't know. It was all pss, 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 pss. Fingers made a hissy sound with her lips. I didn't even think they were speaking English. When they left, I had to climb over the gates again, and that was when I did this. She lifted her leg onto the table for them to see. A big graze of dried blood went from her knee to the top of her boots. The missus was gone, but I caught him up in West Street, and do you know where he went? Of course, Baby knew. Camellia Lane, number 7, Ida's house. Yep. But on the way, he picked up the stupid boys, the weedy one and the beefy one, and they had to run along behind. Ha! You mean the Teasdale boys, don't you? Jin waved a spoon to rub it in that she knew all the stupid boys in Netterfield. They're both called William. You know, by all accounts, their mother had no imagination whatsoever. The older one, Bad Bill, really is as stupid as he looks. You wouldn't believe he's almost in his 20s, muscles of a man, brain of a toddler. And the younger one, William, older than he looks, and as weedy as Bill is brawny, is not quite 17. Well, he left the horse outside Purse Girl's back gate, and bold as brass went straight in. I heard her say, "Oh, hello, Uncle Arthur," and she let him in. Fingers did a good job of the uppity way Ida spoke. Didn't he see you? What about Bill and William? Asked Jin. Nope. And while those boys was larking about on the street, I hid in the yard next door. To Purse Girl's. I stood on the dustbin and looked over the fence, didn't I? And I saw 'em in the kitchen. What? Not Bill and his brother William, surely? No, him and her. She means the undertaker and Ida, said Baby. And I thought, well, she's one of 'em, nattering away, making him cups of tea all friendly like. Then Uncle Arthur came out with the little un, her sister, and that was when old lady next door came out of her house, so I had to hide in the coal bunker, didn't I? She was fiddling and clattering about in her backyard for ages, muttering to herself about thieves and keys. Every so often she shouts out, "Albert, we need a padlock on this door." As soon as I heard her go in, I nipped out and got back in the dustbin. The weedy boy, well, he was trotting the horse and cart out in the alley to the street, and when he gone, the big un drives the missus's car backwards up to where the horse had been. Then somebody pulled the chain on the lav. The little un, Purse Girl's sister, come out, but she didn't go in the house. Oh, no. She comes back out to him, the undertaker, Uncle Arthur. He says, "Would you like to try sitting in it, Bonnie, my dear? I'll get Ida and tell her to come see. You know how much she loves motor cars." Fingers did another pretty good impression of the tough way the undertaker spoke. I should have stopped him. Fingers covered her face with her hands. And that was when Baby knew that Fingers finally was beginning to understand how she felt about her Goldilocks girl. Then they took her. Fingers' hands muffled her voice, so it was hard to be sure. They took the girl. Yeah, they took Purse Girl's sister. But old lady next door was coming out again. The coal bunker door was still open, so I didn't think. I dived in. Old lady filled up the coal and closed the door. It was proper dark by then. I heard a chain go through the latch, and that was it. She locked me in. So I only heard the rumpus, banging and shouting and crying. They was all out there. Darling, you were in there all night? Fingers nodded. I bolted as soon as old man opened it up this morning to fill up. He was half asleep. I banged on Purse Girl's back door. I tried to tell her what really happened, but she wasn't having it. She stuck her head out the window and said, "Go away! It's none of your business. It's a mistake." She don't want anything to do with us. Fingers pulled out a folded bit of paper, like a little poster, from one of her skirt pockets. And I'll pick this up too. She spread it out on the table. British Union of Fascists, Netterfield branch. British Union of Fascists, Netterfield branch. Marching for a Greater Britain, Thursday, 17th of December, 1936. You tried hard. I am sorry. Brian dragged her chair closer to Fingers and rubbed her arm. For once, Fingers looked so muddled she didn't mind.